So before we start talking about factoring, I want to talk about what factors are and how it relates to what we're doing. So these are factors. There's two factors. One of them is 2x minus 3, and the other is x plus 4. So just a little trip down memory lane from when you were a little kid. Factors are the things that make up a bigger number. So like 18 has factors, for example, of 3 and 6, because 3 times 6 is 18. So when you were a little kid, you learned this. And now we're moving into polynomials like what you see up here. So we have the factors, and the first thing they taught you in Algebra 1 was how to multiply those two factors together. Maybe you learned that by using a rectangle. And so you might have had one side be 2x minus 3 and the other side be x plus 4. And then maybe you went and found the area of each of these little rectangles. So this would be 2x by x, which is 2x squared. And this would be 4 times negative 3, which is negative 12. And then you had, let's see, this would be x times negative 3, which would be negative 3x. And this would be 4 times 2x, which is 8x. And notice how these things that I did in green here actually can be combined together. 8x minus 3x is 5x. So then what you did was you just wrote down the answer. After you simplified that all up together, you wrote the answer, and you wrote the addition of everything that was in the rectangle. So 2x squared plus 5x minus 12. So that's what you learned how to do in Algebra 1. What we're going to do now is I'm going to give you this piece, and I'm going to ask for the factors. So the question could be something like find the factors or factor this. And then I'll give you the answer part like this, and I'll say find the factors. Well, we just did this one, so I happen to know that the factors are going to be 2x minus 3 and x plus 4, because we just did that. But now we need to talk about why. So we're going to look at this problem. We're going to try to figure out. First of all, in this rectangle model, I notice that 2x squared and minus 12 show up in that rectangle. So that's an important key thing to note. And then I also noticed that the 5x is what turns out being the sum of these things. So I'll just put a plus sign there for plus. So now we have to talk about how we're going to go about getting the answer. So let's start a new problem and see if we can figure out how to go about getting that answer. And there's lots of ways to do this. So let's try to factor this problem. 2x squared plus 7x minus 4. We're going to try to factor that. So something that I know from that previous problem is that if I had a rectangle, what shows up here and here are going to be the factors. I also happen to remember from that last problem that the 2x squared is going to be what the result of this little rectangle is, and the minus 4 is going to be the result in this rectangle. So far, so good. I could probably do 2x times x there. Now, some of you might be able to start just trying to play around with these numbers to figure out what goes here. But if you have trouble with that, and sometimes it is kind of troubling, there's a way to use, I draw this x, and I put multiplication up here, addition down here, and we used to call these diamond problems. Whatever shows up here and here, that's going to be what ends up going in these boxes here. So here by the times, what I do is I take 2x squared times negative 4. And that's negative 8x squared. So I put that up here. That has to be what the multiplication of the product has to be. And then I remember that 7x is what the sum has to be. So I'm going to put 7x there. And what I do next is I look at this and I start thinking to myself, what product is negative 8x squared? So what two numbers can I take together? So like negative 8x times positive 1x, positive 8x times negative 1x, negative 2x times positive 4x, or I could have negative 4x times positive 2x, and sometimes I make a list. But what I'm looking for is which one of these, if I switched this to a plus sign, would equal 7x. And I see that negative 8x plus, positive 8x plus negative x would be the thing that works. So I'm going to put an 8x in here and a negative x in here. And now I'm going to fill that into my rectangle with 8x and a negative x. Okay, now it's pretty easy for me to figure out the missing pieces of this puzzle. Because I know this is 2x, the side length is 2x, and so what do I need to make that a 8x? It would have to be a 4. Okay, and now I know this is 4, so what do I have to do to make this a negative 4? That would have to be negative 1. And then notice how negative 1 times x will give me the negative x I need. When I add these together, I get 7x. So I'm going to go ahead and write the factors now because I know them. One factor is 2x minus 1. The other factor is x plus 4. So I'm saying that 2x minus 1 times x plus 4 is what's going to give me the 2x squared plus 7x minus 4 that I started with. And if I wanted to check that, I could just, in my head, multiply it out and make sure that it does. 2x times x is 2x squared. I have 8x minus 1x, which is 7x. And then I have negative 1 times 4, which is negative 4. So my factors are right there.